What is up, guys? You know who it is. It's Chris. Welcome back to my reaction channel. Today we're gonna be reacting to top 5 worst pandemics in history by Machi Santoro. So if you're interested in this channel, the link of the original video is in the description. Also show me some love by liking the video, subscribing to my channel, hit the bell button for post notifications. If you have any suggestions, comment down below. I try to make a video out of it. I'll be uploading 1 to 2 videos every day. Also guys, come on, check out my playlist, man. If you're interested in more reaction videos, head down, see if you're interested. With that being said, let's get into the intro.
In 2019, the world got a sobering reminder of how pandemics can spread with the emergence of COVID-19 and the devastation that they can cause. But pandemics are not new to humanity. In fact, far from it. We have survived many pandemics in our history, most of which were far deadlier than the one that we are currently dealing with. But they all changed the world forever and caused devastation during their time, most of which we were completely unprepared for. Here are the 5 worst pandemics in history. Number 5 is the HIV/AIDS pandemic. The HIV/AIDS pandemic, or epidemic as some call it, is unique because it's a pandemic that we're still living with to this day. The human immunodeficiency virus, which can be categorized into 2 strains, HIV-1 and HIV-2, are believed to have originated in non-human primates in West Central Africa and are believed to have transferred to humans through a process known as zoonosis in the early 20th century. Both are species of lentivirus, a subgroup of retrovirus that infect humans. Over time, they cause acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS. HIV-1 appears to have originated in southern Cameroon, while HIV-2 appears to have originated in West Africa, perhaps southern Senegal. Since the first case of infections, the virus has made its way around the world, and AIDS officially became a pandemic by the late 20th century. Today, about 64% of the estimated 40 million people living with HIV live in sub-Saharan Africa. An approximate 1.2 million people in the United States live with HIV, with approximately 16,000 deaths a year. Worldwide, approximately 38 million people live with HIV, with an estimated total of 42 million deaths since the start of that pandemic. To this day, there's no known cure for HIV/AIDS. However, great leaps forward have taken place. An awareness has grown, new treatments have been developed that make HIV far more manageable, and many of those infected go on to lead productive lives. Annual global deaths from HIV/AIDS have dropped to 1.6 million, and as science and technology progresses, many believe a cure will present itself in our lifetime.
That's a lot of casualty.
Number 4 is the Plague of Justinian.
Pause. From what I understood, HIV works like, for example, if you got infected by it, if you got contracted by it, it weakens your immune system, basically destroying your immune system to the point that a single cold will kill you. You know, the bacteria will kill you easily. Yeah, it's crazy. Then I hope, I really do hope they find a cure for that. You know what I'm saying? Because, bro, there's a lot of like stigma around HIV contracted people. You know what I'm saying? Now let's get back to it.
The Plague of Justinian began in the year 541 and lasted until 542. It was caused by an outbreak of a single bacterium, the Yersinia pestis, better known as the bubonic plague. It afflicted primarily the Byzantine Empire in the Mediterranean port cities, killing from 30 to 50 million people in a single year. It carried over from the Mediterranean Sea from Egypt, a recently conquered land, paying tribute to Emperor Justinian in grain. However, plague-ridden fleas hitched a ride on the black rats that snacked on that grain. It went on to spread like wildfire across Europe, Asia, North Africa, and Arabia, killing, by some estimates, up to half of the world's population. This pandemic is regarded as the first recorded incident of the bubonic plague, leaving a devastating trail of destruction behind it, killing up to a quarter of the population of the Eastern Mediterranean. At its peak, it was killing an estimated 110,000 people every day. According to Professor of History
Feels bad,
Thomas
man.
Makaitis
Fuck,
at
I know.
DePaul University, people had no real understanding of how to fight it other than trying to avoid sick people. As far as how the pandemic ended, our best guess is that it was a mixture of some developing an immunity and the majority of people isolating. Number 3 is the Spanish flu pandemic.
Pause. I'm pausing a lot in this video, you know. Just bear with me, guys. I'm surprised that bubonic plague wasn't in number 1, you know, because from what I heard, that fucking pandemic was brutal as hell, you know. There's a lot of bumps in your body, and then the pus, like, bro, this is disgusting as hell, you know. Anyway, guys, this COVID-19, stay inside, you know, help the community. Also, guys, like, this COVID shit slapped the fuck out of us, you know. It's a wake-up call.
The Spanish flu pandemic began in 1918 and lasted until 1920. It infected over 500 million people, about 1/3 of the world population at that time, in 4
Ooh.
successive waves, and included everyone from the South Seas to the North Pole. 1/5 of those infected died, a mortality rate of 20%, with up to 25 million deaths in the first 25 weeks alone.
Fuck,
Interestingly,
bro.
despite its name, this disease did not start in Spain. It was given its name because Spain was a neutral nation during the war and did not
Propaganda.
enforce strict censorship of its press, which could therefore freely publish early accounts of the illness. As a result, people falsely believed the illness was specific to Spain, and the name Spanish flu stuck. It's believed that this pandemic actually began somewhere in Kansas in the United States, with the first observations of it occurring in March of 1918, and then in April in France, Germany, and the UK. This was an unusually deadly influenza pandemic caused by the H1N1 influenza A virus. What separates this pandemic from other influenza outbreaks was that traditionally, influenza had always only killed the most vulnerable categories, such as the very young, the elderly, and the immunocompromised. However, this one was an enigma, as it seemed to kill completely healthy young adults, while leaving children and those with weaker immune systems still alive. Interestingly, this would
that's
not be the
abnormal.
last time that we would see this strain of the flu, as the same strain would again resurge in 2009 as the swine flu pandemic. When it was all over, the Spanish flu
what?
killed an estimated 675,000 Americans, and worldwide estimates regarding
Pause.
the total
Swine flu and Spanish. What? Both of them are the same? Or I'm confused as hell, bro. I'm confused as hell. Comment down below if they're both of those pandemics, both of those virus or whatever the fuck it is the same. Because I'm confused as hell.
total death toll vary wildly, with some being anywhere from 17 to 100 million, but the most widely accepted estimate is somewhere between 30 to 50 million.
That is
So how did it end?
a lot,
Well,
bro.
there were no antiviral drugs to treat the virus and no antibiotics to treat the secondary bacterial infections. No vaccine was developed for this pandemic. However, instead, it ended by observing social distancing, the closing of schools and other such gathering places, quarantining, and the widespread use of masks. It's worth noting that San Francisco ended up suffering some of the highest death rates from the Spanish flu nationwide due to public resistance against public gathering orders. As a result, a 2007 analysis found that if
Public
San
resistance,
Francisco had
kinda like
simply
what's happening
kept
right
all
now.
of its anti-flu protections in place through the spring of 1919, it could have reduced deaths by 90%. Number 2 is smallpox. Smallpox was one of the most devastating and oldest pandemics in history, and by total death count, it could be considered the worst pandemic in history. However, it comes in at number 2 on this
Why,
list,
though?
as the number of deaths occurred over a much longer time span, because, as you'll see, number 1 killed many more people in a much shorter time span. It's believed that smallpox extends all the way back to prehistory, originating around 10,000 BC. But the
Where did
earliest
it came
credible
from,
evidence
though?
of it was found in Egyptian mummies from 3,000 years ago. During the
Fuck.
18th century, the disease
That's old.
killed an estimated 400,000 Europeans each year, including 5 reigning monarchs, and was responsible for a third of all blindness. It's
Shit.
estimated that in the 20th century alone, it killed 300 to 500 million people. Between 20 to 60% of all those infected and over 80% of children died from the disease, or approximately 1 in 3 people
Shit,
on
bro.
average. Smallpox is transmitted in multiple ways, but most frequently through the air in moisture droplets by sneezing, coughing, and talking, but could also be spread through direct contact with infected bodily fluids or contaminated objects, such as bedding or clothing. As recently as 1967, the World Health Organization determined that approximately 15 million people contracted the disease and 2 million people died that year. The
Shit.
disease advances in stages. The first symptoms of smallpox include a high fever, fatigue, a headache, and a backache. After 2 to 3 days, a flat red rash appears on the face and upper arms, and then it spreads all over the body. And over the next 2 to 3 weeks, the flat red spots become firm and dome-shaped and becomes too gruesome to describe any further from there. What makes this disease extra insidious is the incubation period for smallpox is generally 12 to 14 days, which means a person may not even show signs of infection
Kinda like
for
COVID,
around 2 weeks.
right?
The first smallpox
13 to
immunization
14
was
days of
developed in
incubation.
1796 and took more than 200 years and a worldwide vaccination program in order to eradicate the disease.
Fucking
The last
hell, bro.
known naturally occurring case of the disease occurred in 1977 in Somalia and was officially declared eradicated in 1980. In fact, it became the world's first fully eradicated disease and was done so solely through vaccination. Interestingly, to this day, there are still no treatments for the disease that are proven, tried, and tested. Prevention became the key, and it was done so based on a worldwide vaccination strategy.
Yeah.
And number 1 is the Black Death. By far, the most fatal pandemic in history was the Black Death, also known as the plague. Occurring between 1346 and 1353, it killed
Pause. The top 4 was the Black Plague. What? I'm confused as hell, bro. But hey, let's get back to it. Shit.
harrowing 75 to 200 million people, the majority of those in just the first 4 years. Originating in Asia, it's believed that it spread between continents via fleas living on rats that so frequently lived aboard merchant ships known as death ships. Ports were major urban centers at the time, and so were perfect breeding grounds for this
I'm mistaken this
contagion.
one from
the
the
pandemic
other,
was
the number
especially
4.
devastating during
Shit.
that time because people didn't have the scientific understanding of viruses and the like. All that they knew is that it had something to do with proximity. In fact, some forward-thinking officials decided to keep newly arrived sailors in isolation until they could prove that they were not sick, making this the invention of quarantine. Interestingly, as time went on, the Venetians increased the forced isolation period to 40 days or a quarantino, which is where we get the origin of the word quarantine and the start of the practice in the
Yeah.
Western world. The plague wiped out half of Europe's population and changed the course of Europe's history forever. The main symptoms of the plague are actually too gruesome to mention in this video, but also include fever, chills, vomiting, diarrhea, terrible aches and pains, and then, of course, death. To this day, we don't fully understand how the plague worked, but it was believed to have been transmitted through the air as well as through the bites of infected fleas
Through
and
the air?
rats. It was caused by an outbreak of a single bacterium, again the Yersinia pestis,
Yeah.
similar to the plague of Justinian. Other than quarantine, to stop the pandemic,
I'm mistaken
physicians relied on
the two,
crude and unsophisticated
you know,
techniques, such as
the top
bloodletting
four and the
and
top one
boil
right now.
lancing. Practices that were dangerous as well as unsanitary
Bloodletting.
in and of themselves, and superstitious practices such as burning aromatic herbs and bathing in rose water and vinegar, but was curtailed by methods that we still use today, such as social distancing and isolation. Thank you so much for watching this video,
Fucking
and
hell,
if you
bro.
enjoyed it and learned something, be sure to drop a
Guys, prevention is better than cure, guys. Like, bro, comply to the quarantine, stay at your home, you know what I'm saying, bro? Help the community and shit. I didn't expect that the top four, the Justinian plague, has the same origin as the Black Death, the number one. I'm mistaken those two as the same one. Same, bro. But hey, that is top five worst pandemic in history. Like the video, guys. Subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell button for post notifications. Comment down below if you have any suggestions. Check out my playlist for more reactions. With that being said, I'll see you soon.